muchas gracias por conectarte a Vida In Online. Estamos a tan solo unos minutos de comenzar. Pero antes de, quiero darte un consejo. Ve y toma tu café, tu té y ponte cómodo. Y también comparte con tu familia y amigos para que juntos podamos disfrutar de esta transmisión.
Hola, qué gusto verte conectado aquí en Vida In Online. Estamos a unos minutos de comenzar, así que prepárate, ponte cómodo para que puedas disfrutar de todo lo que tenemos preparado para ti este domingo.
Oh, oh. Someday we'll be a million miles away. Waking up on Monday morning, wishing it was Saturday. Kids screaming out, no warning. To a distant memory, I can hear the future calling. Let it wait, 'cause you know that we've got time to get ourselves together. We've got ourselves together. We've got time for us. So baby, let's waste our time like we'll be young forever. Stay forever young. When we were 17, feels like just yesterday. Living a lucid dream, those years just fall away. One day we'll be 33, before we're old and gray. Let's still be 17, like yesterday. Let's stay younger together. 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 Always, you'll always be my fantasy. Even when we're grown up, know that I love you better than today. One day we'll be dancing slowly. For now I'll make it rain. I can see the future calling. Let it wait. 'Cause you know that we've got time to get ourselves together. We've got time for us. So baby, let's waste our time like we'll be young forever. Stay forever young. When we were 17, feels like just yesterday. Living a lucid dream, those years just fall away. One day we'll be 33, before we're old and gray. Let's still be 17, like yesterday. Let's stay younger together. 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 Let's stay younger together.
Wow, great song, great how Antonella song. Friends, welcome to Vida In. How great to have you here with us. Danny, welcome. Yes, today is a very special day. It's a very special Sunday because we are in the new offices of the Saltillo campus. Wow, great. And we are, well, this is like a hybrid between offices, and we have like small TV sets for transmitting. So effectively, we are on a premiere, and we hope that you can enjoy this next 40 minutes. And I want to talk personally because today I'm conducting with a girl that I've known for many years, and she's very young. She's not even 20 yet, but I got to meet her when she arrived, when she was very young, how she has grown. She's part of the leadership in the youth ministry. Thank you, Luis. And I want to tell you my personal experience. I've been an example of this vision, which is betting on the next generation and believing in them. And I want to tell you that when I arrived, it was a very difficult stage. I got here in middle school. It was a very difficult stage for me. And it was also key for me because I had mentors, leaders, people who believed in me, who invested in me. And that was a great example. Today, I'm leading and I love to be in the students' environment. And this is thanks to Vida. And when I talk to Vida In, I mean you. Thank you for your time, your talent, your resources. Thank you for investing in us and believing and adding yourself to this vision. I want to challenge you to continue to invest in these next generations. It's a good investment to invest in the next generation. So thank you, Danny. Thank you to all of you. And talking about the next generations, today's topic is great. We're in the middle of a series called Artificial Maturity, which has to do with the next generations. And today we are going to talk why the name Artificial Maturity, and you cannot miss it. Yes, and then we will sing two songs to close this great Sunday. Yes, so if we're ready, Danny, friends, let's listen to this message to on the other side of the studio, like they say on TV. Let's go with my friend Alejandro Mendoza. Psychologist Tony Campolo wrote at a time the following. He said, I am convinced there are no bad kids, referring to new generations. Rather, new generations or boys, kids with too much information too early. And when you think about it, when you stop to analyze this phrase, you think it makes sense. And it truly does for us when we launched this series because we did it under that umbrella. Thinking on the new generations and how new generations are growing with a sense of a false or artificial maturity. This is why we titled this series this way. And you saw it in the video. We said we don't want our new generations to be like this. Rather, we want them to be like this orange I have in my hand, a true orange, a real orange. And today I want to start by saying why, and you're going to understand at the end why we titled this series Artificial Maturity beyond the intro video we did. But before going into that part of the message, I want to make a small parenthesis and take a moment, especially if you just joined us, to celebrate this Sunday, which is very special for us. It's a unique Sunday. It's a first time Sunday because it's the first time we are transmitting from our new offices here in the Saltillo campus. And we have here, you can feel, you cannot imagine the energy since we started very early in the morning, and all the production team, everyone, with a safe distance, with their mouth, with their face mask and gel and all that. It's exciting. And maybe you're asking yourself, if you haven't attended the Saltillo campus, what's new with this? That you have new offices? What's happening? What's new with that? Well, what happened was in the last months we had a very big transition. And we went from an establishment where we had been for 11 months, and we let it go, and we started in these new offices to operate the church in this stage in which we basically can only do things online and plan a physical comeback. And this is why we are extremely excited in the beginning of a new stage of our organization in the Saltillo campus. Okay, so I close this parenthesis, and I want you to come with me to review this question. Where did we took the title of the series? Why this name? Well, some years back, we met a person, a man with whom we have a friendship. He's a writer and an expert of generations. He's Dr. Tim Elmore. And along his career, specifically in 2012, he coined a term like this, artificial maturity. He wrote a book, and we highly recommend it. And he summarized the concept of artificial maturity as a dilemma, two big elements to which new generations face, which produce this artificial maturity. On one hand, he said, new generations are overexposed to information, too much information, like Tony Campolo said, but much before then they are prepared to handle it. And then they are also underexposed to real life experiences. And more specifically said is that they are exposed to real life experiences after they were prepared to do so. And that dilemma produces a sense of false maturity. So, for example, when you see a guy, a kid, or you see a 4-year-old kid and you think they are 8, they are very awake, they are precocious even. But then when you see them at an 8, you see them at, you think they are 10 or 12. Then when you see them at 12, you think they are 16. At 16, they seem like they are 20. And when they are 18, they seem 12. But that's why it's a dilemma. That's why some people say the new 18s are the 28. There are men, women who are 28 years old who behave like 18-year-olds. But what is it which has produced this dilemma? And I'm sure we can mention many reasons, but I want to go over and to continue to review this concept of artificial maturity. What happens in the surrounding, or what's happening around our children, our sons, nephews, people we coach, more beyond you being a parent. I think this is relevant for everyone who are going before a new generation. You're going to see something in the screen that summarizes the context in which new generations are growing up. They are growing in a fast-paced world. Therefore, they conclude, consciously or unconsciously. The right column of this chart talks about the conclusion they reach and how new generations behave because of the context, the left part of the chart, in which they are living. Since the world is full of speed, they conclude the world is bad, that slow is bad. Everything needs to be quick. They click on a screen, and that happens to you and I. You click a link on a website, and if you see the sand clock or the Mac circle, and you start getting desperate, you are trying to restart the network, and that's just 4 seconds afterwards. Since they are living in a world full of convenience, they conclude that difficulty is bad. And I'm sure you've seen this as I have. For example, I recently heard a very sad story of a young man with whom I've developed a friendship and mentoring relationship at some point in his life. And the bad news was that after a couple of years of having a girlfriend, they married. We were happy. We celebrated. And anticipating what was to come, a couple of months afterwards, he sent me a text, and he said that he was making the decision of getting a divorce. That was just 2 months, maybe 3 months after he got married, after making the decision of uniting in marriage. And I don't want to oversimplify the reason why he decided that. I'm sure there were valid, weighty decisions, but it seems as new generations are concluding that difficult is bad because everything around them tells them that everything should be convenient. They are also growing around entertainment, so boring is bad. And I'm sure if you have children, you've lived through this. My kids are 10 and 12. We get to a place, we can be a party, shopping mall when we could, or an amusement park, and 5 minutes later, their favorite saying of my kids, and I'm sure yours too, is, "Oh, this is boring. Dad, can I get the phone, the iPad?" Boring equals bad, and because everything is entertaining. They are growing full of protection. I would say even overprotection. Therefore, they are concluding consciously or unconsciously that risky is bad. I shouldn't take risks. And what this causes, or what this has made, and in general in the world and universities, are assuming entrepreneurship as part of their central ideology and educational model, because they realize they are receiving generations that are not willing to take risks. They conclude, if there's a risk, if there's a possibility of failure, I won't do it because failure is bad, because they grew in a world full of protection and overprotection even. And they are living in a world full of privileges. So they conclude making an effort is bad. If I'm struggling, this shouldn't be what I would, but this isn't what I should be doing. This is the context. But honestly, we shouldn't only have to point out the context of the new generations as a reasons for them to develop as a false sense of maturity. The idea, I know too much, self-confidence in the first age, in their first years, then in the teenage years they feel confident, but when I get into my youth, into my when I become a young adult, I discover that when I am exposed to real life experiences like betrayal, failure, setbacks, obstacles in life, praise or critique over my life, or the experience of taking risks without having a clear vision when things are uncertain, when the time comes for a young person to be exposed to these experiences, they realize they don't have what's necessary to face it. And that's artificial maturity. And I'm sure the context has a lot to do, but if we were honest as significant adults, we have a part to play on why the new generations are growing the way they are growing. Think with me. Probably for a lot of situations, because of the context or previous models and experiences as parents, we've developed a very passive attitude in regard to the timely upbringing of the new generations. What I mean is this, and I will show you with this couple of charts. At early childhood, under 12 years of age, we, as parents, as tutors, as significant adults, parents, uncles, aunts, a lot of structure and organization. Our agendas are overly charged. They are going to extracurricular activities, and they have no free time. There's too much structure. They're full of information, more than they are capable of interpreting. And finally, they are full of responsibility. There's a weight of responsibility. Nowadays, some academics say that the fear of the new generations is their fear of missing out, FOMO, looking at someone that's doing something and I'm not there, the fear of missing out, FOMO, and of being behind, a lot of responsibility. On the other end, we give them too little freedom and space, too little space for innocence, for exploring independently. We are overprotecting them, like roaming around them all the time, while in the adolescence, in the teenage years, there's too much freedom and space. The opposite, there's too much information. Like in the early childhood, there's a lot of exploring independently. There's little structure and organization. There's little innocence and very little responsibility. And you and I know, and listen, the formula for maturity includes a balance, a delicate balance between responsibility and independence. We need to help the new generation to live every day more freely while they assume more responsibility. The unbalance creates a false sense of maturity. This is why we need to be in the offense of this. This is why I love the Bible. This is why I love it, especially when talking about parenting, when forming new generations and influencing them, because it always presents an offensive strategy, being intentional and being timely when intervening. And not only it motivates us to do so, but it gives us tools. What I want to do now in the time I have left is to go over a passage, a proverb written about 3,000 years ago by the person who was considered the wisest man in the world, Solomon, a Jewish king. And I'm sure you've heard of him. Maybe you've even shared this with other people. I'm talking about a famous proverb in chapter 22 of the book of Solomon. Verse says this: start children off, talking about new generations, on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. I'm telling you that maybe you are familiar with this verse, especially if you've read the Bible in the past. And maybe if you haven't, you've heard of this passage in other versions. I love this version because it's Spanish designed for Latin America, but it's called, in this case, it's a new international version. And what I want to do in this last minutes I have is go over three large phrases which comprise this proverb, and from there extract tools that will help us help uh, help this generation to not go into an artificial maturity. The first one says, start children off. When we read these Bible versions, it's evident to you and I that they were not written in Spanish originally or in English. The original languages for the Bible are Aramaic, Greek, and Hebrew. This passage, particular on the Old Testament, in general, was written in Hebrew. Why do I mention this? Because the difference in language, this transliteration or translation, presents challenges because it doesn't cover the whole meaning of the original word which was used. In this case, the word or the verb start or teach comes from the word shanak, and it means to tighten, close the gap, initiate, start off, discipline, train, instruct. And when you see this, you agree with me that there's much more than theory, than when you close a gap, when you instruct, when you coach. Talking about artificial maturity, there's much more than theory, than information. New generations don't need us for information. I'm sure you already found that out. I found out of this about 6 years ago when my son Andre was being trained at school at the end of kindergarten to build a Rubik Cube, something I haven't done in 44 years of living. I haven't been able to do so. But then he got home and he said, I need you to teach me how to assemble the Rubik Cube. And I said, like, what do I do? And while I was thinking, he was on my phone in YouTube and found over 100 tutorials to assemble the Rubik Cube. And he said, don't worry, Dad, I already got it. I go like, oh gosh, that was humiliating for me because I want to feel useful for him. But maybe this is the first or one of the first generations that don't need of your help nor mine to get information. They need us to interpret that information, and this is what this passage expresses. I want you to go back with me to the text. The second part or the second phrase, it says, start off, or at the beginning of, close that gap, not only with theoretical knowledge, but with experiences at the beginning of their path, on the way they should go. And this passage emphasizes in something very interesting for you and I. You and I haven't been called to prepare the path for our children, but to prepare our children for their path. Let me repeat that. We were not called to prepare the path for our children, to straighten every curve, to flatten every hill. No, we weren't called for that. Your task and mine is much bigger, much more important. We were called to prepare them for the path. In other words, we were called, and this is how I honestly define on a personal way, and my wife do, success in parenthood. How capable are we to train, to equip our children to face adulthood with success or successfully? How capable are we to give them what they need? And I want you to stop for a second and think of this as an adult, like you are. As an adult, like you are. Maybe you're married. Maybe you've set yourself on a professional path. Maybe you are at the beginning, at the middle. Maybe you are about to retire. Maybe you are a grandfather. Maybe you are responsible for your children, and you also are training other generations. You're a teacher at a university, high school, middle school, or maybe you're a sports coach. Whatever your role is right now, you have people under you, new generations that are coming behind you. And I want you to think for a moment on, in your adulthood experience, what would your children need, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews, your grandsons, your godchildren, what inner qualities would they need? And I want you to write some ideas on the chat there. What would your children, grandchildren, or in general new generations need to face a successful marriage, so that they don't have to go through what my friend had to go through? 2 months after getting married, he got a divorce. What qualities would they need? And I will check them in a moment. I have my phone and I have the fan page open of one of our campuses. What would someone need to face, for example, failure when they have a startup in a business? What would your daughter need to face the breakup because of a betrayal in a relationship? What would they need to face excessive praise or critique because of envy or whatever other reason? I am reading your comments here, and I want to I would really love to read some of the qualities. They definitely would need perseverance. Yes, perseverance. That is training my children or next generations to face adulthood successfully. What are the things would they need? Well, they would need, surely, as you're writing, patience. Imagine being married without patience, or the capacity of forgiving each other. Imagine being married and not being able to forgive your spouse. It's impossible. You cannot remain married. Marriage, in a way, is based on forgiveness. What I mean is, our children need to be equipped with inner qualities that don't come from information. They are the theory they have at the reach of their fingers 24/7. The practical training, the being exposed to real life experiences are needed for life, and that is only provided life with a significant adult. So let's go back to the verse, and the last part of it, in my opinion, is one of the phrases most misinterpreted when talking about the Bible, and especially this passage in or throughout history, because this is what it says: start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. And why do I say it's a misinterpretation, the one that we've historically given to it? Because throughout history, we have concluded that this is a promise, that it is a promise for parents or adults who are doing their job. If you do your job, your children will remain on the right path throughout their life. And unfortunately, you and I have realized and found out with friends, other parents, maybe it has been our own experience, that there have been that sometimes on occasions when you are there attending up timely and train your children eventually take or make bad decisions, which sometimes have long time effects. So if we think this passage, this part of the passage, is a promise, we will end up frustrated thinking, why? What did I do wrong? What did he or she do wrong? What did those parents do wrong? If they are a great family, what happened with their children? Because we've interpreted this passage as a promise, and it's not. Rather, it is a warning. It is a warning. How come a warning? Well, a warning that if we don't intervene timely, if we don't do our job, it is very likely next generations will deviate from their path. Now, I want to make a pause here, or because I know this can birth something in you. If I don't intervene as a parent, if my wife Eliana doesn't intervene as a mother, if we together do not timely intervene through tools, closing the gaps, providing experiences, capitalizing those experiences in our children most likely will deviate. And that's uncomfortable, right? Thinking, this responsibility is huge. So this is why I said, I'm sure this is the most daunting task we will go through our life, raising a generation with what's needed to face adulthood successfully. Now, I will close in these last minutes by saying this. After talking about what is artificial maturity, you may be asking yourself, okay, I understood the dilemma of overexposure to information and underexposure to real life experiences. So tell me, what does a mature person look like? Well, it's a good question. Let's go quickly through a list of qualities a mature person has, and I believe it will be very useful as a target for us to aim at. The first thing you see in a mature person, then this is not an order of importance, is that a person can maintain commitments long term. I'm sure you agree with me that a person that that doesn't endure or does not sustain a commitment long term is not a mature person, like my friend. This is why at sometimes Eliana and I, when we advise parents, we tell them, especially in early childhood, in elementary school, when their kids choose an activity, that they at least do it this with discipline for at least a year, so that they learn through experience, not with a speech but with an experience, that life or throughout life we need to be committed long term. Another characteristic is that they are not easily moved by praise or critique, and this is like this because they have developed a strong identity. They know they are not what other people say they are. They are not even the result of their circumstances that haven't failed, doesn't make a failure of them or doesn't turn them into failures in life. They have a strong identity. They know how to handle praise. They don't lose ground, but they also handle critique. They don't feel down, and they know that they need to move forward. If they need to improve, they will, but they will move forward. They also possess a humble spirit. You and I agree in this, I'm sure. People who are mature are humble. People who are arrogant, because arrogance is the opposite of humility. Humility is not thinking less of myself, is thinking less of me, about me. It's putting other people in the agenda, and that's what makes the character of an individual mature. Another characteristic is that they make decisions based on character, not on emotions. They don't go through life, like they feel good and they do everything good. They feel bad, they do everything wrong, etc., etc., etc. So, independent of or regardless of the circumstances, they have decided to act based on their internal structure, their systems of their value systems, their belief system. Another characteristic is that they express gratitude constantly. They are constantly grateful. Immature thinks I deserve it. Mature people think I don't deserve anything truly. The truth is, I am grateful because I am privileged by having more opportunities, more educations, better relationships, or simply health. They are not people who believe they are the center of the universe. On the other part, they know how to prioritize others above themselves. A mature person puts other people in their agenda, and although if done at an extreme, it can be negative because you can violate your personal boundaries. It is through giving yourself or a selfless surrender of the human being is that a person can mature, because and the last point is that a person seeks maturity before acting, and you do that through seeking advice. These are 7 characteristics, and in this way, or this is the way a mature person looks like. And maybe you think after reading this, not even I have that, and that's the point. Why? Because that confirms the need we have, you and I have, as significant adults, that before teaching other generations, that we need to become mature people, not artificial maturity. Listen, you and I don't want to be this. You and I want to be this real orange, a person with content, with substance. And with each one of these characteristics we went through, what I want to do to close this message is basically this: leave you with a task, something you can do today and throughout the week. And it is that you can take these 7 characteristics and do a self-evaluation. Think, which ones do I have, in which measure do I have them? Because years ago I learned this phrase from a leader I really admire. Leading with an example is not one way of leading, it's the only way of leading. So I want to put right now here this list, and it's a chart for self-evaluating, and you will see it on our social media. You can download it, evaluate to evaluate yourself, and you can share it from 1 to 10. How much you have of this. If you have children over 15, give it to them. and self evaluate and let them self evaluate themselves. If you have children under 15, do it, evaluate them, but don't miss the opportunity of being great models for new generations and being intentional for their maturity, not artificial, but real. And I want to close with a prayer asking God to help us, because not only we have a great challenge, but a great opportunity, the opportunity of raising a mature generations of children, sons, great children, coaches, a generation that will be better than ours. Pray, let's pray, and then we will sing a couple of songs. I'm sure we'll close this time inspiring you to face this challenge with all might. Lord, we thank you because it's exciting for us to consider the opportunity we have of influencing and impacting the new generations by modeling. Help us and give us the courage to work on us, on our maturity, and to inspire them intentionally and expose our children with real life experiences and everyone who comes behind us. We ask of this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
La oscuridad se iluminó con colores de perdón. ¿Cómo negar tu corazón que persigue mi interior? Todo parecía perdido, vivía sin rumbo y sentido, pero tu amor me rescató. Mi futuro te entrego, como tuyo quiero vivir. Un oasis en la tierra, libre soy totalmente en ti y vivo estoy. Oh la la, rendido a ti, yo libre soy. Oh la la, rendido a ti, yo libre soy.
Tu reino está llamándome a una vida sin igual. Me atraes a tu corazón, ya no me resisto más. Toda devoción quiero darte y por convicción adorarte.
Mi corazón es tuyo, Dios. Mi futuro te entrego, como tuyo quiero vivir. Un oasis en la tierra, libre soy totalmente en ti y vivo estoy. Oh la la, rendido a ti, yo libre. ya no tenga voz, tú me comprendes, tú me comprendes. Ven a mí en el valle del temor, tú me comprendes, tú me comprendes, tú me comprendes, Dios, tú me comprendes. Te entrego mis preocupaciones, mis dudas y temores. Tú eres más de lo que pensé, más grande eres tú. Y no haré más negociaciones con el Dios del universo. Tú eres más de lo que pensé, más grande de lo que imaginé. Oh Dios, creo en ti, pero ayúdame al dudar. Tú me comprendes, tú me comprendes. Ayúdame, afirma tú mi fe. Tú me comprendes, tú me comprendes. Tú me comprendes, Dios, tú me comprendes, Dios. Te entrego mis preocupaciones, mis dudas y temores. Tú eres más de lo que pensé, más grande eres tú. Y no haré más negociaciones con el Dios del universo. Tú eres más de lo que pensé, más grande de lo que imaginé. Oh, mi Dios, en ti, Dios, yo descansaré. En ti, Dios, todo lo pondré. En ti, Dios, yo descansaré. En ti, Dios, todo lo pondré. Solo en ti, Dios, yo descansaré. En ti, Dios, todo lo pondré. Te entrego mis preocupaciones, a mis dudas y temores. Tú eres más de lo que pensé, más grande eres tú. Y no haré más negociaciones con el Dios del universo. Tú eres más de lo que pensé, más grande eres tú, más grande de lo que pensé, más grande de lo que imaginé. Oh, Dios es más grande.
God is greater than what you and I can fathom or imagine. And it blows my mind that this same God is the God who created us, who designed us, who wired us, who planned us, and loves us. And you know, as a church, we want you to know that God is not scared by your doubt. God's not scared by your fears. You can go to Him with your doubts, with this faith journey that you might be wanting to start. So today, if you have doubts regarding faith, if you want to take a step further in your faith, we want to invite you to connect to this Zoom call. There's a link here on the screen. You can connect. There are people from our team who want to talk to you, who want to pray with you and for you, and we want to walk with you in this faith journey. So thank you for being with us this Sunday. Have a great week.